I got a couple designs here, and I was just kind of going through them a little bit. So here's what I had in mind here for some of the designs we would do today. Now, some of these we will be using just basic Rhinestone fonts too, and I'll kind of go through and show you like why the rhinestones the fonts are going to save us a lot of time. You can pretty much take any font you want and kind of turn it into a rhinestone design. Depending on like the thickness of a font, it's really going to help make it a little bit easier. So pretty much the thicker a font is, the easier it is to rhinestone something out. But also it has to be, you know, the right size and everything like that. So the smaller a rhinestone design is, the harder it is to get the detail you'll probably want. So if it, you know, that's always something you want to think about when we're working with rhinestone designs. It's always to kind of know how big your design's going to be, and that's going to, you know, then you're going to size your clip art or anything like that you might be designing to that, because unlike a vector design, once we have this sized out, you can't just simply change it to another size to fit, like maybe going from like a kid small to an adult large. With a vector design, we can just resize it, no problem. With rhinestones, we'd have to almost do the whole design again. So, but we have tons of fonts, so those are the big time savers when it comes to rhinestoning design out. So, all right, so we'll run through real quick just some of the differences. We have our path fill, we have our island. So pretty much on the place and fill tab, we have our different types of fill. We have our path, hatch, island, and offset. The two we're going to be using the most when we're designing is the path and island fill. Alright, so the path fill is going to make something like this rocket here very easy to make. Alright, so we'll start with that here. We'll just kind of, you know, go through some of the tools, and I'll just start building some parts of the design. And again, if you have any questions, just let me know, and I'll try to dial in a little bit more on that certain feature. Alright, so something like this rocket or firework we have here, that's something just as simple as drawing a rectangle. And again, we want to have this sized out. So I'm not going to go, I don't want to go too large, so I'll maybe do something about, you know, 2 inches wide by 4 inches tall. So on the place and fill tab, we have our path fill here, right? So we have a lot of different buttons. We have inside, outside. That's if we want this filled, you know, an outline or filled to the outside or the inside of pretty much like your vector clip art. And then we have our add stones. We actually will need to check this for like the island fill, hatch, and offset. When we do a path fill, whether we have add stones or not checked, it will automatically you know that you want stones on that, so you don't really have to worry about it that much. And then islands and all this contour spacing, most of this won't matter too much when we're doing a path fill, because it's simply going off of the lines you see here. So the islands is just another word for row, like rows of stone. How many islands, how many rows of stone do you want? So even though it says 0 right now, if you select path fill, it's still going to know to add, you know, 1 row onto that path. So you don't really have to worry about the island setting, the contour setting, anything like that. Now, one thing we will have to worry about the path fill, I'm going to go ahead and click it, and before I do that, let me change my stone color. So I'm going to select path fill now. All right. So just like I said, this is just going to, where we had that path, it's going to place stones around our design. Alright, so now those stones are placed right on that path. Alright, so can we see the issue with the design that I just, or you know, this rectangle I just filled or added a path fill to? The corners, exactly. Alright, so 3 of the 4 corners are touching, they're not, you know, set up like this top left one here. So the corner detect is a option that we do want to check even if we're doing the path fill. And now look at my corners on this design. Alright, so anytime we're working with like a design that might have sharp corners or edges to it, or just even like, most of them will be a little bit like, so it's not like a rounded edge or corner like a circle, but we're going to be doing a heart here in a minute. And even because this shape has these edges here where the heart comes in here and the heart at the bottom, how it has this nice like corner, we want to make sure we select corner detect on that too. That way it recognizes those sharp edges and it's going to fill it a lot nicer. So if for some reason around like edges or corners, you're kind of getting that first look where these corners weren't nicely lined up like this, make sure you have that corner detect option checked, and that should definitely help with that too. Alright. By checking the corner detect, what that does for us are our lines. So if I have this unchecked and I hit path fill, if I select any part of this design, so anywhere on this, any of these rhinestone sides, like if it's the top, if it's the right, the whole design moves with it. When we select this corner detect, what this does is every time it senses or sees that there's a corner, it stops and starts the placement of the stones again. So on this one, because the left side I actually added that corner detect option, you can see how every corner it will like break off into its own separate line. So this one here, all this is just one line. So it just sees it. This one, every corner, it breaks it off into its own path. Now what that does for our design is it's going to cause an overlap on your corners. Okay, so right now you can see those lines that I have here. That's our path. We're going to highlight this section, and down here at the bottom with the like kind of the rhinestones and the X at the end, that's our clear path button. So where these lines are behind our design, when we click this clear path, you can see how it's gone now. And now it releases all these stones as like individual stones. So if I want to, I can just move them freely now. All right, so on this side, you can still see how there's a path, and that path is the entire rectangle, so it moves everything with it. So I can still come here, hit clear paths, and you'll see how it gets rid of that line for me. All right, so that's really important when we're working with stones. Once we finish or add stones around our design, we want to make sure we clear that path, and that will allow us to, move these stones freely. So if you ever move a stone and it moves like the entire line, it's most likely the path hasn't been cleared. So just highlight your design and then just hit clear path. All right. Do you need to check overlaps? Definitely. Anytime we're designing with rhinestones, there's a couple buttons that we always that we're gonna use, and that's gonna mark any overlapping stones for us. So this is what I was talking about a minute ago, is every corner is actually going to have a stone overlapping. All right. When we're looking at our design like this, there might be times when we're designing where we'll see overlaps, something like this. That's really easy to see. But when it's a direct overlap without these features, it'd be really hard to determine where all those are. On a four-sided, rectangle like this, obviously every corner. But when we get into like a different design, there might be a lot more edges or corners, so you might have more overlaps. So down here underneath our clear path, we have a few different buttons. We have our mark top, mark bottom, and merge. All right, so as if I'm newer to the software, the button that I would choose the most is the mark top. That's going to help you, know where all your overlapping stones are. As you get more experienced and familiar with how the rhinestone fills work, you might be using all three of these buttons. Again, the most used one will still be the mark top, but then you might get into the merge overlap stones too. All right, so I'll show you what each of these buttons do for us. So on this corner, I'm going to hit mark top overlapping stones red. So any stone that's overlapping, the top layer, the top layer of those stones will get marked red. So I'll visually show you this red stone. You'll know that it's an overlap. You can select it and delete it. Right. Now, the one next to it is the mark bottom. So if I select mark bottom and it's a straight overlap like this, you can see how it still selects the stone, but you see how you can't see that red dot underneath it because it's completely covered. So that's why this, if you know how to, like, what to look for and stuff like that, and there are times that you will want to use this mark the bottom stone red, but in this case, we want to see all those red dots. So it's easier, it'd be really hard to notice if I clicked off of this that there's an overlapping stone here still. Now, as we get a little bit more comfortable with the software, if it's a simple corner like this, if I had like a really basic design like this, I could easily highlight my design and hit merge overlapping. And that would actually, where those overlapping stones were, it would just merge it into one. Right? If you have two stones overlapping like this, and you hit the merge, it leaves us with like a bigger gap in here. So that's not always necessarily the right one we want to use, because I could just maybe do the top overlap. I can notice that this one's red, but I have some space, so then I could just move this one over and then change it back. So I get in the habit of marking everything the top layer first, and then, go from there. So, but these are going to be your three features at the bottom here that are going to help show or fix all of our overlapping stones. All right. So another tool we use a lot when we're working with rhinestones is called the fill between two. And this isn't just a rhinestone feature. You can use this with like clip art, vector designs, but a lot of times we'll use it with the rhinestone features too. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select a stone on the left side, a stone on the right side. So I have these two stones selected. And I'm going to hit this button, fill between two. And that's going to automatically fill that line perfectly with rhinestones. All right. Now, remember when we first made this this rectangle, how we had to clear our paths? How we saw like the rectangle around it, that actual line? When it kind of looks something like this, where you saw that line around it, and then we hit clear pass. This is a little bit different. So when we select this option here, fill between two, you notice how we don't have that visual line going through here, right? Like there's no line underneath this or on top of it. Even though we don't see it, if you kind of click on any stone that isn't these two outside ones, if you click on any stone between them, you'll notice how it selects all the stones in that path. Right, so even though it's not like a visible line, this is still on a path. And you could actually take this stone here, and I could move it up top here, and it would move your line with it. Right, so we don't want to do that, but until you break that apart, these are all on a path. While it's on this path, you can kind of select any of the stones in the middle and hit up or down on your arrow key, and it'll add or subtract stones to that line for you. All right. Now, once we have that set up how we like it, Then I can select any of these stones in the middle. Pretty much you want to select everything, or have it show that all those stones are selected. So if you select the outside stone, you'll notice how the box is just around this stone on the right. If I select any of these middle ones, it selects that entire path. All right, so once I do that, I'm going to hit clear paths again. And then if I select the middle stone anywhere, it's just going to select that stone. And if you move any of these stones around, it won't move the line with it. And that also will allow you not to be able to add or subtract stones to that line. So that's kind of like the last thing you want to do. You're going to select your path, add your stones, or select the two stones, fill between two, adjust your stone, if you want more or less, and then you're going to hit clear your paths. So I'm going to grab these two here. Again, I'll just make them blue, and then fill between two. All right, and I took a couple out up top, so I'll do the same on this line, and then hit clear paths. All right, so I'm just counting on the same side. I'm going like 7 down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And that's just going to hopefully keep it a little more uniform. And then again, fill between two. I took 2 stones out, and then clear paths. Right. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then I'll go 7 here, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So something like that. Fill between 2, and then that's our design. All right, so now we have an issue with these stones here. So I'm going to get rid of that one, and it's however we want to design this. If we want to make this one color, so it looks something like that, that's fine. We can do that. If we wanted those lines to be separate, then we'd have to, we wouldn't really have to worry about actually this section here. So what I'm going to do is kind of raise this stone up a bit, just a tad, to kind of get it away from that stone, and this one down. And that's enough adjustment where this still looks pretty good. And I actually might just move it down just like that. Alright, so that's kind of just building, just the base of that rocket, just from, just using simple tools, place and fill, path fill around the outside, and then the fill between each of those stones. All right, so any questions so far? All right, cool. All right, so next part, we can just draw the top. That will go to our basic shapes, and I'm just going to draw a perfect triangle and rotate it 225 so it flips up this way, and then this is just kind of lining it up top. And okay, so again here, if I'm setting up my design right now, we don't really have anything filled out here. I just want, again, a simple path fill around my triangle. So what are some of the things I'm thinking about before I add my settings? Exactly, corner detect. Yep. So this has 3, sharp corners, so we want to make sure that corner detect is checked, and then I can hit path fill. All right. So if we want it 2 color, I can leave it like that. Now I do have a couple overlapping stones there. That's okay. Remember, everything is on a path right now, right? That's what's holding almost those stones on the line. So we're going to highlight, clear paths, And then just to fix these, I'm just going to do a little bit of a nudge. Because we don't want any overlapping stones. And that will fix that. Alright, now around the corners, because pretty much anytime you use this corner detect, you're always going to want to highlight your design, mark the top red. You'll see how it marks it a different shade of red, and it will select them all for you at once. So then you can just select all three, hit delete, and now that's good to go. All right, so that's just our basic rocket, and I'm just going to group this together and kind of move it over now. Alright. Alright, so the next part is we have our text for our design. So this is where really trying to get familiar with the Rhinestone fonts is really going to save you a lot of time when it comes to building a Rhinestone design, because really I could have just done like, you know, Happy Birthday America. Obviously like the rocket adds a little bit more to it, but I could make a design really quickly, you know, in a couple minutes just by using the Rhinestone fonts, kind of. So, like I said earlier, you can select any font. So let's say we want like a basic impact font. We have the word happy. Okay. So if we wanted to go the route where we didn't want to use like already created Rhinestone fonts, this is how we'd have to set up our design, and we'd want to make sure everything is set up spaced like height and width wise of our design. So I would probably, you know, write something like this out. So I can kind of get a feel for how big my design is going to be. So maybe kind of set something up this way. Let's move this over a little bit. Alright, so right now my width is 11 inches wide. That's probably too big, so I'll need to bring this in, bring in the word happy, and then kind of move my rocket in a little bit too. And now we're closer to like 10.5 inches wide. That's okay. Maybe we could go a little bit less, but that's not too bad there. Alright. So this is how I'd have to kind of set up my text. So this is the height and width it's going to be. So now I could select, move that down a little bit. Now I could select the word happy. And now I would try to go about filling it with rhinestones. So that's when we can get into more of like the island and hatch fill. Now, we'll kind of go through a little bit of this, but again, it's going to take me so long to just do one word, trying to kind of rhinestone out just the word happy, where I could almost build this entire design using the already created fonts in the time that it'd probably take me to set up the word happy. We had a question. So for an adult shirt, you don't want to go over 10.5 inches wide. No, there's no. For adult shirts, they could be a lot of different sizes. Typically, you know, most of our designs are probably set up closer to, you know, anywhere from like 9 to 10.5. But, you know, if you're going on a 2X or 3X shirt, most of the time you probably want your design closer to like 12 inches and stuff like that. So it kind of depends on what size t-shirt you're going to go for. Now, if you're trying to make like one design, try to fit all, yeah, I'd probably stick around like 9.5, 10. That way, you know, it could probably fit on a small all the way to, you know, an adult extra large to 2X and still look okay. Again, with vector designs, you don't have to worry about that because you could just increase the size for each shirt size. But for a rhinestone, if you're trying to do something for like, you know, adult tees from large to 2X, anywhere from like 9.5 to really 11.5 would probably work for that. If you're sticking more to just like large, then yeah, probably 10.5 is a good size for that. One of the other thing is too with t-shirts and stuff like that. You know, we always get like, what's the best size for an adult large? That's always hard to tell because of so many different t-shirt brands out there, that an adult large in one is an adult medium in another brand. So anytime if you have the t-shirt in stock, or you have like, if you're able to measure the t-shirt beforehand, like the chest width, I would always do that and then base your design on that. If you're not able to preview it, you know, you could probably be safe with, you know, 9 to 9.5 to 10.5, but yeah, it's you know, I think it's, what was the brand? Next Level, I think some of theirs run a little bit smaller, where like Gildan runs pretty true. So like a Gildan large and a Next Level large might be two completely different sizes. So that's one thing too, is, you know, anytime, because, you know, some people worry about the size shirt they wear, so it's always, if you have stuff in stock, we would always, you know, hey, if this is what you're used to working with, you know, you might want to go the next size up in this brand, because they usually run a little bit smaller and stuff like that. Feel free to try it on. But, you know, I would always try to measure that t-shirt ahead of time if you want like the perfect measurements. But otherwise you can, you know, if it's an adult large, I would say anywhere from like 9 to 10.5 would probably fit. All right, so getting back to our design here, we have Happy. It's set to 7 inches wide, 2 inches tall. And again, once we start working on this, this is our size. We're not going to change this. All right. So if I want to kind of complete fill like our text down here, I'm going to either have to use the island or hatch fill. Right. Now, when we're using the island or hatch fill, it is important that these more of these options are filled out. At least the add stones for the hatch fill has to be set up, and then for the island fill, we'll need more information in here too. Right. And where this is pulling from, like the size is always up top here. So you can see how SS10 selected. If you want, you know, a smaller or larger size, you can change your drop down, and that will change your, you know, stone selection. All right, so we'll start with our hatch fill. So we have our Happy design here. I have an outside option selected, which shouldn't really matter with the hatch fill, but we will have add stones, and we're going to select contour spacing and fill line spacing as auto. All right, so next we just have to select our design, click hatch fill, and that's going to fill our design just like that. So when I remove this, this is the fill. All right, so that's not the best fill with our design here. All right, so you can see what the hatch fill does is it goes a fill left to right. So all these like areas up top on the P and stuff like that, this isn't a great font to work with a design like that, because it has some curves and edges to it where it's never going to capture those, because the fill is only left to right fill. Right. So I'm going to select the same design this time. I'm going to select island fill instead. Now when we're working with an island fill, we kind of want to go through all of our settings and make sure they're correct. So if I want to fill the inside of this, I need to make sure I have inside selected first. All right. Next, we have, so we're selecting inside or outside. Then we have our add stones. We've already have that checked. And then next we have our island. So this is rows of stones. So anytime I'm doing an inside fill, we're really not going to know how many rows are going to be needed, right, to fill this completely. We can maybe guess, but we won't know for sure. So I don't want to sit here and type in 2. Oh, that doesn't look good. Hit undo, type in 3. So if we have an inside fill, if we leave this number at 0, what you're telling the software is that you want this completely filled in until there's not enough, like until we run out of room. Okay. So that, this setting on 0 is good. Contour spacing, what that is, and we'll set that to auto, same with fill line on 99% of our, island fill designs. But that's where your outline is, where you have this line, how far to the inside you want that to start in. So if you have it set to auto, it's going to bring your first stone right off the line like that. So there's no touching of it. If you have it set to 0, it's going to go on the middle of that line. So when we did like the hatch fill here, these circles were right on the middle of that line, that path we had. All right, so that's what contour spacing is. So usually when we do like something to the outside, you always want to make sure that's set to auto. That way it fills around your design just like that. All right, so we have our design selected, and we'll hit island fill now. All right. So here, it looks a little messy. We have some overlapping stones, but that's really not too bad of a fill right there. So there's no rule that says we have to have this contour setting at auto. And if we look over our design here, we have this middle row that are overlapping a little bit. And here, because we set the contour to auto, it came this far off the inside line. So by looking at our design like this, and this gets a little more like advanced, but because I had some room on the outside and I had those 2 overlapping lines in the middle, I'm thinking, and just so you guys know, the contour spacing when we have it set to auto is about 0.08, 0.09. So if I go in less, like let's say 0.04, and then I do an island fill, see how my middle lines aren't overlapping anymore? So by playing with the contour spacing, you can get different results of how this fills. Now it doesn't make every letter perfect because you can see how the A is a little bit, probably more work now. So you can kind of play around with this contour spacing. Maybe 0.6 will work even better. So still decent inside fill. The A still messed up a little bit, but the P looks pretty good now down the middle. So it's kind of finding which one ever gives you like the least amount of work to edit. But again, just with this word happy, you can see how much work we have to do with just 5 characters, right? So at this point, now to clean all this up, I would have to hit clear my paths. And then really I'd have to start with yeah, so a bunch. You're right. I'd use Rhinestone Fonts. So you're telling us definitely use a Rhinestone. Yeah, I would definitely try. Anytime you're working with fonts, is to try to find a Rhinestone font that matches the best for what you're looking for. And like last Monday we had the True Type Pack Font 1 on sale. So those are great times to get like just a collection of fonts all at once. But if you're looking for something more like a script or something more specific like a college or block, we have all those too. So you can always shoot us an email with like a picture you're looking for, and we can help you navigate the sites that way. All right, because now I'm going to have to kind of come through here. This row has 4, so I'm going to have to kind of fix this bottom row on each one. And then there's a lot of like readjusting through here too. So it would almost be like to fix this H, honestly what I would probably do is get rid of this here, copy this line, go to my edit tab and copy that 4 times. Right? Look how clean that is. So then I could get rid of this side You know what? Maybe I'll take these 4 here, make a copy, and then I could grab this side here, make a copy, and just bring it over like that. So that's probably how I would go about like actually like fixing the letter H, because it is just like a blocky letter. But when we got to the A, it wouldn't be that simple. I'd have to do a lot more work with that. So instead, we could just write the word happy, find a font. So let's type TRW. 6. Is that the one I use? Yeah, 6 looks pretty good. But we have a couple like block fonts. But we have rounded if you want it more that style. So there's a lot of different styles that we have on here that would work kind of with this look that we have. Alright, so once we type out our font this way, we need to make sure, because not every font, you can't just take a Rhinestone font, like the word happy right now, and let's say I want that to be 10.7 inches wide. Alright, so I can't just make my Rhinestone design 10.7 inches wide and be done with it, right? In order to make this like an actual rhinestone design and the right characters or the right size for those rhinestones, again, remember we have our SS10 selected. So I need to make all these SS10 stones. So to do that, I'm going to hit my resize button right underneath. So when I hit resize, and I mess with this font already, so actually let me, and that's one thing I'll show you too, of why that just happened. But anytime we're working with a font, we need to just type it out. Select the font, and then we always want to pull from the corners. Alright, so if you don't pull from the corners, if you pull from the edges here or edges here, it will throw off your font. And then when you go to resize it, if you don't see this, not all stones are 0.135, would you like to replace? Then it most likely got stretched the wrong way. Alright, so we're going to hit yes now. And I don't know if you guys could see that, but right now I'm at 9 inches wide. So again, it doesn't matter what size you size this to. When you hit this resize and hit yes, it's going to make all these stones perfect SS10 circles. So whatever we have selected here. So at that size, when all these are perfect SS10 circles, this word happy is only 7 inches wide by 2.5 or 2.25 inches tall. All right, so that doesn't mean now I get to, resize this to 9.5, because all those stones now are bigger or would be bigger than our selected 0.135 circle. Right, so if I click on an individual stone now, see how they say 0.18 by 0.18? Our circles need to be 0.135 in order to fit my SS10. So does that make sense of how the fonts work when we resize them? And I'm just going to group this together just so it's all one right now. Alright, so we'll do the bottom part now too. So we'll type out America. Select our SS6. So again, if it's hard to see, I put American. If it's hard to see, if we select this, we're going to drag from the corner. Alright, so it's adjusting the height and width at the same time. If you pull from just the side, just something that small, it will mess up the Rhinestone font. So I'm just, when I resize it like this, when it's super small, I'm not resizing it to hopefully 10 inches. I'm just pulling it, widening it enough so I can actually read the text, make sure it's, what I want it to say. I didn't mistype anything. And then I'm hitting my resize. Not all stones are 0.13. Would you like to replace? Yes. And now this word America is 9.3 by the 2.25. And I'm just going to group this together just so when I'm like moving my design around, it's easier to, you know, select all these stones at once. Alright, so the last word would be birthday. And with this one, we're going to use our Stadium Rhinestone font. So this is one of our script fonts. I'll do all lowercase. Right. So this one's pretty cool. It's more of a script font, and we set it up this way, but there's actually going to be some overlapping pieces. So they go like right into each other, right? So there's a couple different things you can do. I like to set it up. I try to clean it up beforehand. So again, I'm pulling this out just from the corners so I can see it a little bit better. Once I have this, you know, sized a little bit bigger, I'm going to hit the B up top here, and that's going to break apart each letter into its own kind of font. So at this point, I'm going to select the B, and I'm just going to nudge it over. So we had a question. So if we want that font to be 10.5 inches, can the design wizard fill in the extra stones? Are you talking about like the word America here? If you wanted this to be bigger, you'd pretty much be adding like, it'd be hard, I guess, in this sense. Like you'd pretty much would have to manually add layers to, or like more rows to it. So it's not gonna make it bigger. You're gonna have to like make it bigger yourself. So like if you want to make it a little bit wider, you could add a side, like a row to each side. And then same with like if you wanted to make it taller, you could add it, you know, once it was all rhinestone out, you could do it something like that to make it taller or wider. But it's not gonna like, if you size it to 10, it's not gonna add rows or anything for you. Couldn't you break it apart and add a little space between? Yeah, so beforehand, you can always add space between the characters. Like, that would be an easy one. And yeah, you'd pretty much do what I'm doing down here first and just kind of move all the letters or use the text spacing. But there's going to be, you know, a lot more space between each character when you do that. So you could make it that wide, but you know, you just want to try to get that spacing equal between each one, and then you can go, you know, you can make it from 7 to 8.1 or 8.2, something like that. But yeah, there's no, once, that's the thing with the fonts, is the size they are is the size they're gonna remain. Like, there's really, the only way to make this larger without putting in all the extra work is from going to, from an SS10, you could make this an SS16, and now we're at 9.7 inches wide, but these stones are for SS16 now instead of SS10. Yeah, we had a question, couldn't you use the text spacing tool to add spacing? Yes, you could. It's not a font anymore, so at this point it would be a manual respace like I was doing. But before I made it into like this one here, how it's still a font, how I can still go in and type into it, that's when I would have to add spacing using the text spacing tool here. But on this birthday, let me go back to, all right. So with the birthday font here though, Yeah, so once you convert to curves or resize, hit this resize button, which would in turn convert it to curves. There's that text spacing feature wouldn't work. It only works with like when it's reading it as a font. So once you hit any of these resize buttons, anything like that, or convert it to curves, that is not. It's reading as an object, not a font. All right. So I could technically use the text spacing here, but instead I'm just going to select this, hit the B. That's going to break up each letter for me. And then as I move the B, you can kind of see it. Those aren't overlapping anymore. So once I fix the B, I'm going to then select the I in the B by holding Shift. And I'm just going to move this one over a little. And actually, I'm going to move it this way. And I'll just fix this one manually. The T, I'm just going to slide it a little bit this way. The H, we'll just slide a little bit closer. And then let's go ahead and slide this A over a little bit this way. And the D a little this way too. And instead of having all those overlapping pieces that I'm going to fix, that I could have to fix after, now I'm doing it all before. So I have this set up. I select resize now. Not all stones are 0.15. Would you like to replace? We're going to hit yes. And now that respaces everything. So the only area I should really have to fix is maybe like here I can move this stone in just a little bit closer so it looks like it's going into it. And then our I going into the R, which I'm just going to kind of remove a couple stones. Now when I do that, this is another really big tool we'll use when we're working with rhinestones. You see how I have this gap between this row? How we have kind of like a bigger gap right here? So here, I'm going to select, hold Shift and select the stones on this path. And then I'm going to hit respace right here. And that's going to select all the stones on that path and perfectly space them so they're all the same size, all the same spacing between, so you don't have like, you know, two stones really close together like this and then like a big gap between them. And then I'm just going to group this together. And now I'm going to just place this right in between them. So we're going to have that overlapping a little bit like that. And then we'll have it overlapping this top a little bit too. Alright, and I moved these, are you using the keyboard arrows to move the letters? Yeah, when I was doing the birthday, you can use the arrow keys, you can use the mouse and hold Shift so they stay in the same line. Any of those will work. And let's turn this blue so we can see this a little bit more. Alright, so here, remember how I said most of the time you'll use this mark overlapping stones red? Well, when we're looking at our design now, if I want birthday to be on top, which it is. You can see how it's on top of those gold stones. So, if I want to mark all the overlapping stones red that are underneath, I'm going to have to select our mark bottom stones red. So these are the times where this, even though, you know, like I said, most of the time you'll want to select this top one. If we want the layer to remove behind it, that's when we're going to select mark all the bottom overlapping stones red. And that's going to, any of these that are overlapping, you'll see how they get marked red now. All right. So one tool, once you mark all these red, let me go back and do it one more time. You'll notice how it selects, once it marks them red, it selects them. It has them all selected too. So I could just remove all these and hit delete, and now all those are gone. The reason I don't like doing this is look how many gaps we have in our design now. Like the letter P, some of the Y. So what I like to do is instead of remove them all at once, is I'll go through and something like this one here, I can just nudge that up a little bit, turn it back to the gold color it was. And now that's fixed. This one here, that's a pretty good overlap. I might be able to kind of move it over like this, but I'm just going to delete that one out. Our 3 right here, I can just nudge up a little bit. And then really these two, I might be able to nudge just a tad. And yeah, we can move this whole row up. And then I'll just make those gold too. All right, so once I do that, now I can just click on one red rhinestone, select all the same color, which is our middle button right here. And then I'm going to delete all those out. All right, now if you have a slight overlap like this with 2 different colors, that's okay, because these are going to be on their own templates. Each color will be its own template. So as long as this, like, if this black was the same color, these 2 stones would be way too close together. But because they're going to be separate colors, they'll be on separate templates, and that's okay. When we're working with like the same color stones, there isn't like a absolute minimum or anything like that. Our settings will space it out at 0.02. That's where you get this space from. So we set it to 0.02, but there's times where it might be like a little bit closer like that, which is okay. Once you kind of get into this territory where you're this close, that's where something I would, if possible, just nudge this out a little bit. And that will help from your template material ripping. Alright, so same thing down here. We have our black and our blue. We want to remove the blue behind. So I'm going to highlight that section. These 2 here. Mark the stones that are overlapping on the bottom red. So it should just grab this handful here. Now most of these, this one here, let's make sure it's ungrouped too. This one here I can just kind of nudge and turn that back to blue. Everything else, maybe this one I can nudge over a bit, turn that to blue. But everything else is pretty much covered up. So we'll select all the red, all the same color, which is our middle button here, and then get those out just like that. So now I could maybe even select all these, make them red, and then I'm going to just leave that as a gray. That'll be our white, and then we have our blue underneath. So now we can grab our rocket. Just kind of set this in here. And again, if it's too big, we could just highlight this, make it go back to 0. And we can shorten this out. So instead, I could get rid of this line here. Drop a stone here. fill between 2. That's going to fill that line right there. And that just made that a little bit shorter for our design now. So once we have that set up, the last part is just kind of adding a little fuse here. So with that, I just made a simple B-spline, and you can try to go like through the letters or around it, but if you want to, I put like a loop in it here, anything like that. You can put that cord or that fuse wherever you want in your design. And then once you have that set, let's just go to a black stone. You just click on that line, place and fill, path fill, and that's just going to be your fuse just like that. All right. Now we do have some overlapping areas here. So the first thing I'm going to do is hit clear paths, and then I'm going to get rid of this stone here. Just nudge that one a bit, and then that one, and that pretty much cleans up our area there. And then lastly, I can highlight this whole section now, and we have this on top. So it's up to you how you want to make this look. You can do it a couple different ways. So let's say this section, I want to mark the top. So that's actually going to get rid of our fuse here. And then this section, I'm going to mark the bottom. And those are all pretty much covered, so let's just get rid of those. And that way it looks like it's on top here and then going down underneath just like that. Now, this is one area that I would want to clean up a little bit. So to do that, we can kind of just pull these stones down a little bit, maybe raise these ones up a tad, and then just kind of adjust these just a little bit above it. For some reason those didn't get selected, but let's go ahead and get rid of these manually. Something just like that. Alright, and then at the end, make this like a red. And then I just selected a couple stones like this. Both of these here, fill between 2. Remember, when you do the fill between 2, you still need to hit clear path. And then maybe just like a couple smaller ones kind of coming out of it. So that's kind of the end of it. And then we have our finished design. And we could actually probably make this whole part red, this color here. Let's go ahead and select this. And so now I was just using like the gray and stuff as a color placement. So then I could select, let's go ahead and ungroup everything here. Get rid of that. So make that white. Mockup, simulate. So then we have, you know, pretty basic rhinestone design. Just like that. All right, so again, that's just using, you know, no existing clip art really. We just build it from scratch, and then our basic rhinestone fonts. Maybe you can explain. Okay, yeah, so on this page here, what I did is, we had a question about, when I brought this in here, my design was bigger than my workspace. So sometimes when you make a mock-up, when your design's bigger than your workspace, you can see some of your designs, like if I go back to page 1 now and then the mock-up, it's not doing it now of course, but sometimes the design will bleed over into the next page. So that's why I always like to get in the habit of making my workspace the size of my design, which is this white button right here. And that usually helps with, you know, it preventing it from going into the other pages, but of course it didn't do that this time, so. All right, so our second design, again, it's going to be mostly, or the majority of it will be just some basic rhinestone fonts. But here we have our shape. We're going to do a heart fill. And this I wanted to show because it helps us see some of our most used tools. So the first thing we're going to do is just draw our heart. And if it helps, just so you can see it when it's set up, this font, you can always type it out first. So this is our DWS Athletic 2 color. So I typed out the LVE. And this is my lettering here. This is a 2-color font. So now we have the number 2 up top here. So when we hit 2, it will add our second color around it. So we had the fill, and it's going to add the second color. So if you already had the fill or the outside color and you hit the 2, it'll automatically fill what you didn't have. So it doesn't matter if you start all upper or lowercase. When you hit that 2, it automatically fill the part that's not there. All right, so again, before we set this up, we want to get the sizing. So let's go ahead and let's size this to SS10 sizes. And now we have our SS10 size down. So we have our L, and I'll group that, and then our VE. And I'm going to add a little space between the two, but I'm going to group those together because those are going to go, you know, pretty much underneath like this. So now I just want to grab this heart and pretty much size it up to fit my design here. So this looks pretty good sizing here. So this is just over 3 inches. All right, so now we'll go back to the place and fill. And I want to do an inside fill of this heart, completely filled with rhinestones. So what settings should I be looking for with my design right now? So let's open this, let's close this, and reopen it. So it's like we're fresh to our place and fill tab. And we'll go through each section. So if I'm doing it inside, if I want the inside filled, pretty obvious, we're going to select inside. Alright, since I'm using the island filled, does it matter if I select add stones or not, or is it going to know? Perfect. Add stone. Nope. It will not know. So we want to make sure on the island fill, if you don't have add stone selected, it will give you, like, let's say I had one island, it will give you a fill like this. So if you see something like this when you're using your rhinestones and it fills it with this instead of actual stones, it's because you don't have this selected. Alright, so we got our add stones. Next, we have island. So if I want to fill this rhinestone heart, or if I want to fill this heart completely with rhinestones to the inside, how many rows should I put in here? 0, 0, 0. Perfect. So by hitting 0 in here, it knows to completely fill that with rhinestones. Alright. Space 0.02, we're not going to change that. And then I would get in the habit of just doing the auto and fill line as just click the A next to it for auto. And then, you know, I kind of mentioned this with the first design, but even with this heart, we'll want to hit the corner detect. Alright, so this is another thing that can happen. If you have it defaulted to crystal stones up top here, when you hit island fill, it might look like something like this. So you kind of see these dotted lines. That's actually crystal stones. So you just can't see them. You just see the the line. So before you fill an object, I like to use any color. If it's already filled, yeah, you don't. Someone said you can't see if there's any overlapping. You don't want to fill a design with the white stones or the crystal stones. So you want to pre-select like a color over here. Now, if you have the object selected and you pick like purple, that's not going to work either, because now when I hit island fill, it puts purple on purple and you have the same result. So if your design already has like a color to it, like if my heart was already, let's say my heart was just like light pink. Well, I want to pick a color that's going to show up on that. So I could pick black, cobalt, topaz, something like a blue that you're going to see it. But you want to make sure you don't have anything selected, then you select jet black. So jet black selected up here, my heart's still purple or pink. I hit island fill, and now I can really see those rhinestones show up there. The corner detect angle is set to 100. When do you need to change that? If you're getting like bad results with your corners, how they're not, you can see how these ones turned out really nice. If they're still like not perfect, you can adjust your degrees in here. But most of the time you won't really have to play with this corner detect too much. Alright, so next, I have my stones laid out. What's my next step? Alright, so we have a couple different answers. A couple of us said clear path. That is going to be the correct answer first. Next, we had overlapping stones. So in order to check the overlapping stones, you would need to clear your path first. But the overlapping stones would literally be the next step. So first we want to highlight the entire design, hit clear paths. Now you'll notice that our pink original heart is still there. I like to have that remain there because I think it helps show your design a little bit better. And then the next part is selecting the design. Now sometimes when you select everything, including the heart behind it, if you mark your stones red, sometimes it might mark all the stones red. If it does that, it's selecting the object behind it. So what you'll need to do is just select one stone, select all the same size. Then you can do your mark top overlapping stones red. Oh, and it grabbed, sorry, it grabbed all the stones on my page. So it's taking a little bit longer, but. So now you'll see how it just marks those ones red, just like that. Alright, so at this point, anytime you see a stone like this is a straight overlap. We can get those out of there, but you know, if possible, something like that, I can just nudge over and make it back to the jet black, and that's a quick, easy fix. All right, so this one here, I might just, you know, get rid of this one and just kind of move it, or move this one in a little bit. Now everything else is pretty much a bigger overlap than I can really fix. So now I'll select the red stone, select all the same color, and delete those out. Now these ones didn't get marked because if I zoom in you can actually see they're not overlapping, but we will want to kind of go through our design and just look for little things like that, and we'll want to manually fix those. Alright, so now we have our design. It's pretty much, you know, all the overlapping pieces are taken care of. Now we have the issues with, you know, this gap running through the middle. Right? So this is where the respace tool is going to be, you know, your best friend when you're designing with rhinestones. So I'm just going to nudge these ones a little over too. Alright, so the respace, what that's going to do is you're pretty much just going to select like a row of stones, so like something like these ones here. I'm going to start at the top here, hold shift, and I'm just coming across my rhinestone pattern just like that, and then hitting respace. And that's just going to close off, that respace button is just going to kind of close off our design. So there might, once you respace it, you might have to like move a stone or two, but we're pretty much going from one side to the other and respace. Now, technically you can go like all the way across. I feel like you get better results when you kind of just do a smaller section like this at a time, but you can go all the way across if you wanted to. And you'll notice it's leaving behind these lines. So that's another thing we'll want to, you know, make sure we go back and clear those so there's not a bunch of like lines running through your design. Right, so that looks pretty good through there. We'll come back up to this part. Maybe respace those a bit. Respace that a little bit. Alright. So now we have these lines, so you can clear them two ways. You can literally click on the line and hit delete, or you can highlight your design, that section, hold control and clear path, or sorry, shift and clear paths, and it'll get rid of all those extra lines for you that way too. Alright, so you can kind of start to see how nice this right side looks compared to our left side now, right? So now we're just going to kind of go across and do the same thing. Probably just add a stone right in here. So start up top. So I'm just holding shift, clicking the stones, pretty much that are in that line, and then hitting respace. So shift, selecting the stones, respace. So that looks pretty good there. Got a couple that we can maybe move in a little bit. Just kind of manually edit. And then I want to fix this row here. All right. So the last part would just be selecting that side, because remember we have all these lines in there. It's a little hard to see, but I'm going to hold Shift, clear pass, and now that's done. Alright, so once I finish editing my rhinestone design, that's when I can click in here and get rid of the background, and now we have our finished design like that. Alright, and now to make it kind of this look that we have here, and I just did this one really quick just to kind of look it over, so that one's really not even cleaned up yet. But now we're just going to highlight that section and turn it blue. And then with the stripes, that's pretty easy. That's just going to be going across like a piece like that, turning those white. So this we're all kind of just eyeballing, so that might be a little bit high. You know, maybe I want to make these stones still black. So you can come in and edit it however you want. And maybe this row here we'll make gray. This section here white. And maybe like the last couple at the bottom. Alright, so just like that. Then I can select all the black and turn that red. And then we have our heart just like that. And then the last part would just be kind of lining it up here. Oh, so it looks like this had some overlapping issues, so it cleared those up for us. So let's go fix this real quick. So this, we had a question, do you need to resize it to SS10? The heart is all already SS10 because that's how I filled it. And the letters I've already moved to SS10 so we could kind of get the size we wanted for our heart. So everything at this point should already be sized up and ready to go. So now like the outside, or let's ungroup everything here. So we're just kind of lining everything up. Maybe nudge this over just a tad. And then whatever color scheme I want, I could like select all the orange here. And you know, if I wanted the crystal, we could outline that with crystal. Oh, that was already the same red. So we'll leave it red, and then we'll make this crystal here. So then we have, oh, and then the last part. With this, I was just doing like every other stone. I was just kind of going around it. Like I wasn't actually going to count like 50 or anything like that, but I'm just doing a bunch of, you know, every other stone kind of in the area. And I just turned that white to add like a little bit more of like the stripes and stars look. So play around with that a little bit. That just, you know, adds a little bit something extra. And then we have our finished design. So with the heart, it could, we had a question about the hatch fill with the heart. So you could kind of hatch fill it. The only issue with that is, and I just made all those white crystal stones, so that's why it looks like that. But let's get rid of this here. So that's our heart here. And yeah, for a design like this one here, it might look a little bit better. You would have to kind of finish the top part yourself because remember it has trouble with the curved edges. So you might have to kind of do a little bit work at the top yourself. So if you wanted to go that route, you definitely could. And that does give you like a lot straighter lines with that section here. So if you want more of like, maybe even get rid of this top one here. And I'm just doing this one kind of quick. But that one you could, you know, take a better section and do like every other one like this. You know, it might look a little bit cleaner with those. And then you could do like every 2 rows, you could kind of switch those up. So if you kind of like this style better, so it's a little bit cleaner on the rows, we could definitely do that too. It goes back to blue. Make those like gray, and then maybe do like those ones. But maybe kind of have that look instead. So it's up to you how you like it. You know, I know these lines look a little bit wobbly because of the fill. You know, if it looks cleaner with this style here, that's fine too. It's just a little bit harder to get those rounded edges around the top and stuff. So whatever look you prefer, you can make it pretty, you know, easy with those different types of fills. So this could be like a nice little decal. The heart itself, which is cool, it's only like 2.8 by 2.8. So you could do that. You could do this just for, you know, on a mug or a koozie or something even like that. And then, you know, if you want the whole design, you could do a car decal or a shirt, you know, anything like that. But here's your, you know, kind of 2 different styles. So from afar, this one might look a little bit better just because of its like cleaner lines and stuff like that. Oh, and I kind of messed up this section here. So they're going to be all off a little bit. Let's make that one red. That one white. Instead, let's just fill between 2 just to clean this up too. All right, so this is all more personal preference, whichever you like more, or whatever your client likes. So you could even send them like both options, and whichever one they choose, you can go with. The hatch fill is honestly a little bit easier to design with this one because it's all straight lines, but and it's less work with, you know, all the edits. But if it's just a heart without all these stripes and stuff underneath it, like if you just had a plain heart all one color, that's where I would almost always go with the island fill heart. Okay, so that's where the big difference is. But that, you know, that's one thing to think about too with all your rhinestone designs and fonts. Really, like let's say we just had the word America here again, and this is the last thing I'll show you guys real quick. Let's say we had I gotta resize this first. So let me just retype it. So resize this all, hit yes. So once it's resized this way, you could do a very similar thing to just this design. So you could highlight this section, turn all this blue, and then, you know, red, gray. Actually, let's do a little bit less. Let's do like 2 rows. What is that? 3? Let's see how 3 works. Gray. Oh, forgot a row. Maybe red here. Sure those are all gray. And this row here. Back to red. So just with like a basic font like this, we can go through it, edit the color scheme, and now we have a, you know, just from the text, we have a brand new design pretty much from it. And there's a couple that, you know, you might need to go through and just kind of manually make sure they're all selected. And then, you know, kind of same thing, just every other stone. You can make gray up top here. Alright, so once you have your rhinestones, you know, text and stuff laid out, you can always just go back and add colors to it, make it, you know, so when we say it's like a 2-color font, like this here, it's already separated for the outline and inside fill for you. Where, you know, if it's a row like this, or like a font like this, which has 3 rows, technically I could just select the whole outside. It might take a little time, but I can just select the outside, and I can make this a 2-color font, or you know, look like 2 colors. It's not going to turn the font to a 2-color font automatically, but I'd have to go around and do the work myself. But you know, that's always an option too. So I could do, you know, red outline with a blue fill. Alright, so what I'll do is I'll include the 2 designs we made today plus the extra heart in the download area. That way, you know, if you ever want to make these or want them for the weekend, you'll have those available. Perfect. Well, thank you guys for coming so much. Don't forget designing with or the Design Today giveaway. We're updating those, and actually this week they're all like kind of 4th of July themed, Independence Day, stuff like that. So definitely you can get some clip art out of those. And then tomorrow Matt has his Thursday live at 12, and then Friday we're gonna go into we're gonna have another. I'm gonna have another training that we're gonna get into, like setting your pricing on your calculators and kind of running through those again. So I know we did, you know, the whole overview the last couple weeks, and that's kind of what we ended on. But we had a lot of questions on the pricing calculator. Excuse me. So I figured I would do like a whole, you know, training based on it. What do you know about sublimation? Karen, I really don't know too much about sublimation. If you want to, the best place I would send you to is our crafting with our Facebook crafting page. Are you like a member of that? Have you heard about that? Okay, that's where you can get a lot of great information on sublimation. But like, if you have any questions, you can email it to us, and you know, we can try to find that out for you too. Matt knows a little bit more too. Okay, you know a lot now. Yeah, cool. It's just one of those. It's one of those medias that I haven't got to play around with actually too much. So like I don't have like a sublimation machine at work to kind of work off of. So that's where, you know, that's why I don't have too much experience from it or with it. But Matt's done a little bit more, and like I said, we have a lot of customers that work with it. So that crafting page is a great place to get, you know, answers from. All right, guys. Well, you have a great day, and then I'll see you guys Friday. But don't forget about the live tomorrow. That's the live training and giveaway, and that's going to be on our YouTube channel. So you can set your reminder today, and that's going to be at 12 p.m. tomorrow. All right, guys. Have a great day.